Okay, so this lesson we are going to build something using shapes. So once you open Illustrator, you're going to open the file called Building with Shapes. And you're going to see a robot on the screen. We are going to build that robot out of some basic shapes and fill in with color. One of the first things we want to do is make sure that our view is set to Essentials Classic. So if you touch the drop-down menu, make sure it's checked off on Essentials Classic. That gives you a little bit of a different view, allows us to have this bar up top that we can control some of our shapes and whatever tool we're working with at the moment. It gives us a bar on the side that gives us things like layers and stuff. And then on the left hand side is our toolbar that you're used to through your first lesson. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start to build shapes in order to build our robot. So first, this selection tool is what we have. We want to move to our rectangle tool. Now you'll notice in the title there's an M in parentheses. That's what we call quick keys. That allows you to switch between tools pretty quickly. So if I were to press M, it would choose my square one. If I choose V, which would be my selection tool. So anytime I'm on the board and I want to switch back to my selection tool, I'll just hit V rather than clicking on it on the toolbar. It saves a little bit of time, but it's not that big of a deal if you get used to selecting it from the toolbar. So first we're going to choose our rectangle, and you'll notice the pink lines try to keep lining up with the robot. We're going to ignore that for right now, but we are going to use those in a little bit. So with my my crosshairs on my artboard, I'm going to make a square that's 2 inches wide and 1 inch high. Now if you can't get it to 2 inches wide and 1 inch high exactly, that's okay, because up top you will notice this bar that says shape properties. If you may or may not have these things next to it, but if you click on shape, a box is going to open up underneath it. What this does is it allows us to change the size of our shapes. So one of the keys to make sure that things line up correctly is this in between. If I click on this and it shows that 2 chain links together, that means these are going to change proportionately to what they are currently. So for what we're doing now, because we want to create a custom width and a custom height, we're going to click on this so it has a line going through it so it doesn't link them together. So we want it 2 inches wide, and then we want 1 inch in height. So I'm just going to key that in to 1, and I'm going to click off of that, and you'll notice that the box on your artboard changes. The next thing you want to do is, if you look at the box on your artboard, it has square edges, okay? Whereas the one on the robot clearly has curved edges. There are 2 ways to get those curved edges. The first one is to grab this target in your square, and you'll notice the little curved line show up next to your selection tool. If you click on that target and pull it towards the middle, it will start to curve those edges. All right? So the 0.23, 0.24, and so on is how much of a curve it is. The more you drag it towards the middle, the more drastic the curve. The more you pull it to the outside, the less drastic the curve. If you have a curve and you want to reset it to square, you just click on it again and pull it all the way to the outside, and it'll make it square again. The other way to do it is, if you know exactly what you want it to be, is to go up to shape again, and these 4 numbers in the bottom right here relate to the corner radius. So if right now we want these linked together because we want all 4 of them to change to the same thing. So I'm going to click in here, and I'm just going to key in 0.15, and I'm going to click off that, and you'll notice it changes all 4 of them to curved, and it changes all my curves on here to equal. I do have the option of changing the type of curve. I could have an inverted, or I could have a squared off corner or a cut off corner, but we want to keep these rounded just for this robot. So I have my basic shape. Now I want to move it so that it lines up with this robot. So I want to line it up with that pink line. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool. I'm going to grab the shape, and I'm going to line it up with this, and then I'm just going to move it straight across to the right. You'll see a lot of different pink lines with the intersection Right now it's trying to line it up with the existing robot. Once we get some more things over here, we'll line it up with the one that we're building. Okay, so I have the main bottom part. Now I want to start building these legs. So to do that, I'm going to first zoom in. So I'm going to press Control plus, and I'm going to do it twice. And I'm just going to adjust my artboard so that I can still see this in my vision, but I'm working mostly on this. So the first thing, so I'm going to click on my rectangle tool. If I hold this down, you'll notice other options appear. If I want to just draw a rectangle, I can come straight to my artboard. If I want to key in a rectangle, I can double click on this, and it'll open up a board, and that'll allow me to, or open up a rectangle window, which will allow me to key in exactly what I want. So right now I want a rectangle that is 0.15 in width, and I want my height to be 2 inches. And then I will hit OK, and that'll place one over here. I want to move it closer to this, so I'm just going to get my selection tool again, and I'm going to move this back. Okay. Now, before I turn this at an angle like this, these two are, I want to create these circles that overlap on the top. So I'm going to click off of my deselect my rectangle. I'm going to go back over to my rectangle tool, and I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to choose the ellipse tool. Once I have the ellipse tool chosen, I can come onto my artboard and I can create an ellipse. All right, and we want to create an ellipse that is 0.42 to 0.5 by 0.1. Okay, again, I'm just going to create one, and then I'm going to go up in here and I'm going to key in my height and width. .42 and then 0.1. Okay, and then I'm going to hit enter, and that'll change the size of my ellipse here. So I'm going to get my selection tool again. I get in the habit of clicking over there sometimes instead of hitting my quick keys, but that's okay. And I'm going to drag that, and I'm going to line it up with the center. You'll notice the pink center line, which is my anchor, my intersection point. So I'm going to line it up with that. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the top for when we angle it and connect it to this. So now there are two ways we can create. We can sit here and we can make all these ellipses over and over and over, or all these ovals over and over and over, or we can copy them. So on a PC, you would hit Control C. You make sure your oval is selected, hit Control C, and then you would hit Control V, and a second one would appear. I can then take that and drag it and line it up with the previous one. So I want to make sure that pink intersect line is there, and then place it directly below it. A faster option, rather than constantly hitting Control C or Control V now, would be to select this, put my selection tool on it, press the Alt key, click on it, and then just drag one down. And that creates another one. Now I want to make sure that these are evenly spaced, so I'm going to allow the pink lines to do the work for me. You'll notice that the intersection line from the one above it centers it, and then you have two, they look like X's almost, and that measures the space in between the two objects that are already there. So I'm going to move it so that those are even, and I'm going to continue to create these all the way down until the bottom. And all I'm doing is pressing the Alt, then selecting it and dragging it down. All right, it's a quicker way to make shapes and quickly repeat them when you have several repeated. Oops. Okay, so now that I have those done, I want to keep this as one solid shape. Right now this is a whole bunch of individual shapes. So what I if I go to move this, I have to highlight everything, which I can do by taking my selection tool, clicking off of it, dragging my selection tool over and down so that everything I want selected is in that box, and it will highlight everything. From that, I can move this whole thing wherever I want. It becomes a little more complicated if I'm working a little bit quicker, and I grab this one and I go to move it like this, and then all of a sudden I have one and it's separated from the rest. So I want to group these together. To undo the move I just did, I'm going to hit Control Z, and that will undo my last move and step me backwards. So to make all these one piece, I am going to draw that box to select them all again, and then I am going to group them. So I can do that one of two ways. I can go up to Object and I can hit Group, or I can hit Control G, and that will group them all together. Now I can't just grab one and pull it, I pull the whole thing. Okay. So what we want to do now is we want to put this at its angle. So with my legs selected, I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to go to Transform, and then I'm going to choose Rotate. All right. That'll open up a box, and you can set the angle in here yourself. So we're going to set this at 15 degrees, and I always want to make sure Preview is set so that I can see what the angle is at, especially when I'm doing work where I'm not working off of a template. So once I know that I want that set to 15 degrees, I'm going to hit OK. The other way to rotate an object is as you get close to the corner, you'll see a curved arrow. When that appears, I can click on that and I can turn my object from that, and you'll notice the gray box, the degrees changes based on that. So I just want to get it back let's get it back to where it was, so I'm just going to do that to completely mess it up. And then I'm going to hit Control Z and it'll return it back to what I selected. So now I'm going to move this into place, and I'm going to move it so that the upper left hand corner here of my large rectangle meets my curved rectangle right here on this corner where it says anchor. Okay, so I'm going to move that up, and it's really just kind of eyeballing it to make sure it's in the right spot. Alright, so once it's there, I want to create the second one. And rather than go through the whole process of building it, copying and pasting, and then creating new things, I'm going to select this. I'm going to go up to Object, Transform. I'm going to go to Reflect. Now when I do this, this will open up. I want to reflect it vertically because I want that there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit, rather than hitting OK, because OK would change the object that I have. And rather than doing that, I'm going to hit Copy. And that's going to give me a second object. Okay, and it's going to be grouped just like the first one is. Then all I have to do is slide that object into place like that. Okay, and now I've got both. You'll notice in the original robot that it looks like those go behind. We can make that happen pretty quickly by selecting both of them. Okay, and then I go up to Object, I go to Arrange, and I'm going to Send to Back. That'll then cut off those tops and make it look like they're going into that piece. The next thing we want to do is build this section down here, which are the wheels. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with this main rectangle in the middle. So I'm going to go back to my rectangle tool. I'm just going to hit M, and I'm going to draw my rectangle. Then I'm going to adjust my size quickly to a width of 1 inch and a height of 0.25 inches, okay, or 1/4 of an inch. Hit enter and it'll resize it. Choose my selection tool so I can move this, and I just want to line this up. I want to center this with the one above it so I get that vertical pink intersect, and then I want to make sure that those interior high corners of my legs go into the square like that, so it looks like it goes behind it again. Next I'm going to create another rectangle, so I'm going to use my quick keys and I'm going to go M, and this one is going to be significantly smaller than the previous one. So my height in my last one was 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to divide that in half. And my width isn't really a big deal on this one because of what we're going to end up doing with it. So I end up with a longer rectangle. Now I'm going to move that rectangle into place. And this one's a little bit bigger than the other one that's there, so I can adjust that a little bit. I can go back and adjust my height so that it is, oops, 9, and that'll narrow it down a little bit. Okay. From there, then I'm going to create a second one that goes on the other side. So I'm going to get on that tool, or on that one. Sometimes it helps to zoom in to grab things. I want to make sure I have my selection tool. I'm going to press Alt, click on it, and then I can drag another one to the other side. Oops, didn't happen how I wanted it to. Let's get this back where I want it. Alt, select. Well, for some reason that's not working this time for me, so we'll just copy and paste it. So now that it's copied and pasted, I have this shape. On the original robot, you'll notice it looks like it's one shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to join those shapes together so that they are one shape. So I'm going to select all 3 of those shapes. Okay. And I'm going to go over to the toolbar, and I'm going to go to my shape builder tool. That's this one right here. It's got the 2 circles with the line. So once my items that I want to put together, join together, are there, I'm going to click on that shape builder tool. And when I go in here, you'll notice that they gray out. Okay. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw a line across like that. And then I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw a line through the shapes that I want to join together. So I end up with the shape that you see there. Right? I'm going to go back to my selection tool and deselect. So now I have the axle for my wheels, I've got my legs, and I've got my main part of my body. I'm going to choose my rectangle tool again, and I'm going to draw a rectangle for my wheel. Okay, I'm going to get the basic shape, and then I'm going to go in, and I'm going to adjust that to a width of 0.5 and a height of 1. That'll give me my tire the way I want it. Okay, my corner radius, I'm going to change to 1, or excuse me, 0.1. I'm going to make sure all of them are at that corner. I'm going to take this, get my selection tool again by pressing V. I'm just going to line it up with my axle so that it's lined up center and center of the top, and then I'm going to place that there. Okay. Next, I'm going to copy this. Let's see if it works this time, rather than moving it. Oh, for some reason, oh, Alt. Huh, I was pressing the wrong button. So I'm going to copy this again. It happens even to me. I'm going to move it over, and we've got that there. So now I've got my my tires, my axle, my 2 legs for my robot. Okay. Next, we want to build this main part of the body. When we do that, we're gonna use the shape builder tool again. So first, I'm going to draw my rectangle, and I want to create a rectangle that is 1 by 1/2. So 1 high, 0.5 wide, or 0.5 high, 1 wide. Next, I want to, so to get these rounded edges, I'm going to choose my ellipse tool. When I go to draw my ellipse this time, I want to create a perfect circle that's 1 by 1. So when I start drawing my ellipse, I'm going to press the Shift key, and that'll automatically square up my circle. So I want to draw a circle that is 0.5, right? Again, sometimes it's hard to do it just with the mouse. So I'm going to draw my circle, and then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to adjust my circle size. Now because it's a circle, I want to make sure that it's linked. So I want both sides to be 0.5 so that it stays a circle. Oops. Okay. So now it stays a circle, so I'd link that to make sure that that stays. I'm going to get my selection tool again, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to line it up with the middle, and the middle of my circle with the end line of the rectangle. I'm then going to copy this to the other side as well. And just as we did with the axle, we are going to join these together. So I'm going to select them all, go to my shape builder tool, and I'm going to draw a line through them all so that they become one shape. Okay. Get my selection tool. I'm going to move my shape over, line it up with the middle and the top. There we go. Next thing we're going to build is the top part of the body, and all we're going to do is take the existing rectangle we have, and we're going to copy it and move it up. Again, I want to make sure it's lined up with the ones that I'm working on now. Okay. So now that we've got the main part of our body, we are going to do another circle. Okay. So I'm going to take my ellipse tool, and I'm going to draw a circle. Again, this one will go to 0.5, and I'm going to line it up with the center part, and I'm going to go a little bit into that. Now on the robot over here, you'll notice that the circle goes behind the body, and on here it's in front. So again, we need to choose that. We need to go to Object, and we need to go to Arrange and Send to Back. So now that it's behind it, then we can build our head. Okay. When we go to build the head, again, we're going to use our shape tool, and we're going to build it. So we're going to start with a square. So if we use our rectangle tool and we want to create a perfect square just like the circle, once we start building it with our hand, with the button still clicked, we're going to press Shift, and we're going to create a 1-inch square. You'll notice all the measurements in the side are 1 inch, or in the box are 1 inch. So create a 1-inch square. I'm going to go back to my shape tools. I'm going to create a 1-inch circle. Okay. Get my selection tool, join them like I did that middle part of the body, and then with both ones selected, I'm going to use my shape builder tool again. I'm going to create that full shape. Now with that selected, I'm going to move it, line it up center, and I'm going to just overlap it a little bit. So now I've got my head. Okay. The next thing we want to build are the antenna that come out the sides and the top of the head. So the first thing we'll do is we'll build this rectangle. We'll build this as a whole piece, and then we'll group it, we'll copy it, and we'll move it to different places. So I'm going to make sure I get my rectangle tool again. I'm going to draw my rectangle and adjust my size so that it is 0.25 in width and 0.75 in height. Oops. Unlink those. Let's go 0.25 and then 0.75. Okay, that's better. Then we want to do our corners so that our corners are 0.05, just a slight curve, and that'll change all of them. Okay. Now my selection tool, I'm just going to move this over here for now, and I want to draw another rectangle. This one will be 0.5, so minor adjustment here, and 0.1. my selection tool, I want to line this up and intersect it with the center of the one that I was just working on. Okay. There we go. Oh. There we go. And now I want to create my circle. So the quick key for circles is L. That'll get me to my circle tool or my ellipse tool. I'm going to do one that's 0.25. Alright, get my selection tool, line this up. Okay. Looks like this is off just a little bit. And there we go. Okay, now I want to group these so that I can copy and rotate them. So I'm going to highlight them and I'm going to hit Control G to group them. If quick keys aren't working too well for you, you can always go up to Object and select Group. If you ever want to separate them, you can click Ungroup and that'll separate the pieces. Now when I just highlighted, I highlight only one. But for now we want to group these so that we can use them as one piece. So I'm going to move this into place, and as long as it's on the side of the head, that's good. It doesn't really need to be exact. Now I want to rotate or reflect. I'm going to reflect vertically at 90, and again I'm going to create a copy. And when I create that copy, then I can grab that copy and move it straight to the other side. Okay. Now with this one, what I want to do is go to Object, Rotate, and the same thing. I can rotate 90. Okay. That'll give me my preview. So 90 turns it upside down. Rather than doing 90, we will have to go the other way. So I can do minus 90, right? And that'll create my preview. And again, rather than turn this one, I would hit OK, but because I want to create that third one, I'm going to hit copy, and that's going to give me another one. So adjusting my screen, and take my selection tool, and I'm going to move this and center it directly above the head. Okay. With that done, we're going to create our arms. Building our arms is going to be pretty simple. We're going to use a lot of the same things we've already done, but we're going to take parts from other sections of the robot. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this, and I want to copy this one circle. Now because it's grouped together, if I just copy it now, it's going to copy the whole piece. But because I want to copy that circle, I can go into what is called isolation mode. So once I have this highlighted, I double click on it, and you'll notice everything else grays out except for that one piece. This allows me to go into just this section right here. You'll notice I can't really select anything else, and I can select just that one circle. I'm going to copy that circle with my Alt, click and drag, and then I'm going to exit isolation mode. So all I have to do to exit is just double click on something else. Okay. I want to copy this now too, so I'm going to re-enter isolation mode. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to click my Alt button and drag, click and drag. And then I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to rotate it so it's at a little bit more drastic of an angle. And I'm going to connect it up to that circle. I want this to be a little bit longer. So rather than 0.5, let's make this 1 inch. Okay. So now I'll just need to move this again. Again, careful to grab that and not the whole thing. And that is there like that. Next I'm going to do this middle circle. So I'm going to go to this circle and I'm going to copy this again. I'm just going to put it on the end right here. Okay. And I want this one behind this. So take that, object, arrange, send to back. Okay. That's better. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy this top part of the arm and bring it down. And I'm going to rotate this again, just so it's at a slightly different angle. Grab this, bring this up, and connect it to my circle. Okay, with that now selected, now I want to build this claw. So to build the claw, I'll adjust this where that is a little bit more. That's better. To build the claw, we're going to take this circle and we're going to copy it. And we're going to get our rectangle tool. We're just going to draw a small rectangle that goes into my circle. Okay. I'm going to center that. And it doesn't need to be very big, just big enough so that you have that gap in between. All right. We'll change my width here. So it's 0.09. Let's shrink it up just a little bit. Okay. Now what I need is I need to select both of these objects. And I'm going to go up to Window. And what our goal is we want to use this object to make a cutout in my circle. So let's actually move this in a little bit further, like that. So again, we're going to select both, and we want to cut this part out of this circle, but still have that black line as kind of the outline. So we're going to go to Window, and we are going to go down to Pathfinder. You're going to have another window open up somewhere on your screen. I have different shape modes that are available. What I want to do is I want to choose the one that's going to allow me the minus front. So whatever you're cutting out needs to be in front of the previous one. So if I click that, you'll notice it changes my object so that I have that cut out to have that little bit of claw. All right. I only need to do this once because we're just going to copy that arm to the other side. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to take my claw here. I'm going to attach it to my arm. And then I'm going to group this because I want to make sure I move this all at once. So highlight it all, Control G, and that groups it all as one piece, and then I can connect this to my robot. Okay. Again, you can see that that circle goes behind the other circle. So I'm just going to take my object and I'm going to send it to the back. All right. Oops. Ooh. I accidentally did that all in isolation mode, so we're going to ungroup it. Okay. So now this is selected. We'll regroup this, and then we'll regroup this. There we go. That's better. So now I can take that object and send it to the back. All right. Now I need to make my arm for the other side, so I'm going to take that arm, and just like before, we're going to transform. We're going to reflect, or reflect vertically. So we're going to make one on the other side, and we're going to make a copy. And then we're going to take that copy, and we're just going to move it over to the other side. Okay, so now we've got the basics of our robot built. We want eyes, so what we can do is we can go in here, and our eyes, you'll notice, are the same shape. So I'm going to isolate this and select it, copy it, and exit isolation mode this time. And then I am going to ungroup these so I can grab it again. And I'm going to line it up in there. Then I want to create my second one, so I'm going to press Alt, click on it, drag it over to the other side. Okay, so I've got my two eyes. Next I want to create my mouth. And for the mouth, we can just draw a new rectangle. We'll do 0.75 wide. Oops. and 0.15 in height. Okay, and then with my selection tool, I'm going to take that and I just want to center that with the rest of my robot and maybe move it up a little. So I can move it up with my arrow keys. I don't need to grab it every single time. I can use the arrow keys just the same. Then to create these things on the body, the first thing I'm going to do is get my selection tool. And size of these isn't really a big deal, just as long as you have a little bit of a scale to them. I'm going to place these, and where they are on the body isn't that big of a deal either, as long as they're on the main part of the body. So I have that, go back, create two smaller ones. Right, and then I'm going to create a third one, and then I'm just going to grab the corner, and I'm going to change the shape. Maybe center it a little bit. Okay, then I'm going to create this box right here. Again, get my rectangle tool, create that box. Okay, and then we're going to create just this line right here. And to do that, we're going to use our line tool, which we haven't used yet. So if you go over to your toolbars on the left-hand side, you'll see a line segment tool. Click on that, and that's going to allow you to draw just a straight line. Okay, and to make sure it's straight, so when I pull my mouse across, you'll see I accidentally pulled it at an angle. If you press down on the shift button, it will make sure that that line is straight. Okay, then we'll just shift that line over a little bit. Okay, so the main part of our robot is built. Now let's do some of the detail, and we'll do some color filling. Oh, let's not forget the lines for our wheels. We choose that line segment tool again, and this time there's no real appropriate length, but I'm gonna go to where that anchor is, and I'm just gonna draw a straight line segment down, and I'll go to the other side and draw another one of a different length, and just vary the length on these, and that's what gives it that illusion of roundness. Okay, just so that they're not all the same. I'll go to the bottom and I'll do the same. And you'll notice it lines up with the one above it. So where I've got a short one up here, I'm going to do a little longer one down here, and vice versa. Right. And I'll do the same on this other wheel. And then get my selection tool. So now we're ready to start adding color to this. So when we go to add color, we'll need to enter isolation mode for these things at the top and for some of the other parts that we have here. We could have filled them in as we were building them, but I wanted you to get the building down before we started adding color. So let's work from the top down in adding color. So when I go into here and I click into isolation mode, I'm going to select this, and at the top in the ellipse bar, which is this whole thing, everything on this bar has to do with the ellipse that I'm working on. I can change the thickness of the outline if I want to, but we're just going to leave it as is. And I'm going to go into this, which is the color of the outline of it. So I'm going to and we're just going to use some stock colors that are already in here. So I'm going to choose this orange. You'll notice that there's 4 letters, C, M, Y, and K, and that relates to the 4 colors that Illustrator works with: cyan, magenta, yellow, and K stands for black. And they all have different numbers, and it's the amount of that color creates what the color that you have. So this is 100% yellow, or not 100%, but 100% of yellow, and 50% magenta creates this orange. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice the outline of my circle becomes that orange color. I want the middle part to do that, so this box next to it is my fill color for inside shapes. So I'm going to choose that same one. All right. Next, we're going to click off that. We're going to select this bar in the middle. My outline is already black, and I want to just fill it with black. So I'm going to go in here, and I can just do straight black. Okay. This, on the other hand, we're going to make a light gray. So if I go into my fill color first, you'll see a whole bar of grays. We'll choose the gray. The gray is a variation of the K. So if the only number that appears in here is the K, and it goes from 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up to 100. So we're just going to choose 40% for this, and then we'll go to our outline and make sure we get 40 for that as well. So now that that's done, we can then go move to our next one. So we're just going to move in here. We're going to go 40 on this one. 40. Go to our bar. Make that black. Go to our circle and change that to orange. Again, this would have been a lot quicker if we would have filled color to begin with, but because we wanted to make sure we got the robot built, we're going to go in and we're going to add color in the end. Because when we would have copied our objects, we would have copied the color with them as well. Now I'm going to exit my isolation mode. I'm going to choose my eyes. You'll notice with the eyes, we kept the black surround, and all I did was choose this green in the bottom. These are your primary and secondary colors down there. Just kind of some basic colors that do not have a lot of difference, or not a lot of variation to them. Okay. Then my head for my robot is going to be a darker gray. We'll choose the 70% gray. Actually, let's do the 60% gray. And we want to make sure that outline is 60% gray as well. And then the mouth, we'll do a solid black. Oops. Okay. This solid black. The body, again, we'll do that 60% gray. We want our outline to be that 60% gray as well. Deselect that. And moving up this box right here, we're going to make a lot lighter. We'll do this at 20%, 30% gray. Okay. And then this box, the outer box here, we'll do 20% gray. Make sure we're going to keep that black outline. I'm going to deselect it, go in here, make this blue, just kind of a generic blue. Do this generic yellow. And do this generic red. Okay. Now with this, again, we'll have to go into isolation mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this top circle. I'm going to press Control, or Shift, and I'm going to select both those circles. And then I'm going to select the claw hand. So I've really only got those three selected, even though it's a large box. With that, I can go over to my swatches over here, which are the same things, and I'm going to fill those with gray, like I did before. Okay. Then I'm going to choose my arms. I'm going to select one. I'm going to hit Shift, select the other, and I'm going to fill those with black. Okay. And we're keeping the outlines on both of those. So next we're going to select this. We're going to go into isolation mode again. Select that first circle. Press Shift. Select the second circle. Holding Shift. Select the third one. Change my color. Okay, just wanted to make sure it was the right one. Select that, change those to black. Okay, now if you're changing the outline in your swatches, you just need to click on this, and that would change the color of the outline of the objects as well. So like if I changed it to red, it would change it to red. But you don't really have to worry about that. Up here it's two different windows. Over here in swatches, you just click on the one that you want to change so it's in front. Now we'll click this, fill that, click this, and we'll go fill. Make sure our rim is filled the same gray. Okay, and then this, again, we'll have to enter isolation mode. The back piece we're going to fill with black. Oops. And then these pieces, I'm going to select them all. And those we're going to fill with a light gray. Okay, and then, oops, I'm going to select those again. Don't deselect them before you change the outline. I'm going to change our outline to that light gray as well. Okay, and that's the 30% gray. So then we're going to exit isolation mode. We're going to enter isolation mode for the next one. We're going to do these first. We're going to make our outline that 30% gray. We're going to fill with 30% gray. And we're done with that. We're going to choose the body of the leg, make sure the fill, not the outline. We're going to fill with black. Okay, we're going to exit isolation mode. Now the axle piece, we'll fill with black. Then we'll switch to our tires. And we'll fill those with a dark gray. We'll go 80%. We'll go 70% gray on those so that they're the same as the body. We'll make sure our outlines are 70% gray as well. Okay, and then I can click these arrows and that puts my swatches back to where they belong. And now you can see that we have completed our robot. So what you would do from now is you would save this file and then submit your completed robot next to the original one in Schoology. And that is how we build with shapes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask along the way in the process. I will be happy to answer them. And then next lesson we will move on to working with lines. All right.